Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play and earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I wanted to just have a discussion around land specialization, storage, and food. And this is coming here as we hopefully have land going live here in Splinterlands later this month, land 1.5. And I wanted to talk about some of these concepts that are going to be important, maybe not right away in land 1.5, but certainly will be important in further iterations of land in land 2.0 and 3.0. And I want to speculate a little bit on what it might mean for land strategies for those for the long term, right? That are here for land in Splinterlands over the long term, and things that you might want to think about now just to avoid complications or potential issues later on in your land journey. That being said, with land 1.5 hopefully launching within the next 2 weeks here in Splinterlands here in August, it's going to be interesting. Like land 1.5, well, it could be a smashing success or it could be a little bit of a disappointment. We just don't know because we haven't seen it yet. But regardless of where on the spectrum land falls, I think what is important for those that have a long-term vision or belief in land in Splinterlands is that over time, with 1.6, with 2.0, with 3.0, etc., land functionality will get filled out and it will get better and better. Now, whether it's already great to start with or maybe needs some work, we'll find out soon enough. But what I wanted to talk about today specifically, again, was land specialization, storage, and food, not necessarily with regards to land 1.5, but more with regards to land 2.0 and beyond. And why did this topic come to mind for me personally? Well, it was because within my region, San 98, I traded a few plots of land that I had quite a bit of, like a surplus of, in order to diversify and get some other lands that I didn't really have a lot of, just really, to be honest with you, to be able to use cards that I had more effectively for element bonuses. So I traded some Badlands plots and I got some plains as an example. And for me, that seemed like a no-brainer at the time because, well, I have a lot of Badlands in my tracks and, having a little bit more capability in the future, for example, to maybe farm grain in land 2.0 and beyond seemed like a reasonable thing to diversify into. And then, as I thought about it a little bit more, it was interesting for me because I know Matt has said in previous sessions and town halls that really he could see folks specializing when it comes to land and being successful with specialization in, maybe producing in the future something like, all stone or all ore or whatever, you have a majority of your plots of land in. And I was trying to understand, why would Matt say that? Because he has said it on, I think, more than one occasion. And what is interesting is when I come to think of it is, what are the storage requirements going to be for land and what we produce on land moving forward? And we know that there will be some type of storage requirements with land. We don't know what that will bring. But in addition to land storage, there's been talk obviously about land transportation costs, and that's already implemented in land 1.5. But for land 1.5, we don't have any storage requirements or gates or barriers right now. But what could it mean, for example? Like if I have two plains in my region now, and what does that mean in the future for land 2.0, for example, where maybe now 50% of those planes, like one out of those 2 plots, now needs to store grain or whatever I harvest on those lands in land 2.0 when the 50 resources come online that we're going to be able to either craft or harvest. What does that mean if I have to dedicate a plot or a building specifically to store whatever I produce? Well, it could be very it could eat into the costs or the productivity of my land pretty quickly. If, for example, I'm producing 10 different resources on, let's say, 20 plots of land, maybe I have to spend, the other 10 plots just on storage buildings to be able to store those resources, to be able to sell them or put those in LPs. It's really not clear what kind of requirements we're going to have for LPs or storage. So as we look at that example, that could be a very good reason to specialize in few resources and farm those few resources really well. Because let's say you level up your storage building and you have one plot of land for storage and you level that up, and now all of a sudden that one plot can store 10 or 20 plots worth of resources that you're harvesting and farming. Whereas if you have, like I said, 10 different resources spread across your plots, now you have to have a bunch of different dedicated storage silos or buildings to maintain, which is going to have its own costs in not only DEC to upgrade those storage buildings, perhaps, but also the plots of land dedicated to store the resources. And if you're, for example, maybe storing resources on a land, maybe you can't harvest resources at the same time. So basically, it could take a single plot out of your productive formulas for produce and efficiency. So that could be something to think of as you're looking at land purchases today in land 1.5, when you can only harvest grain or research tokens or SPS mining. That's going to change, and I would think it would change within the next 6 months, perhaps, where it'll switch over to a much more complicated or complex game where you have new considerations, and making the right strategic decisions now when it comes to land purchases or land diversity or land choices could be very impactful. And I want to also just mention one other thought here on this process when it comes to land specialization and storage, and that's food. Now, right now, today, for grain, any land in Pretoria can harvest grain on it today to produce food for your workers. If, for example, you might be a landowner that holds multiple plots in a region, or maybe you're a tract owner or a region owner, whatever the case may be, right now when it comes to food, you can be, very, non-specific in the types of plots that you have harvesting or farming grain. In the future, for example, though, if, for example, only things like maybe plains or rivers or something like that are able to actually harvest food or grain for workers, it could be a very interesting economy, because then all of a sudden, let's say 100% available land plots go to be able to harvest food to support Pretoria, down to, let's say, maybe 10 or 15 or 20%. What is that going to do to grain prices? And what is that going to do to lands that were formerly self-sufficient in land 1.5 that maybe, let's say, most of their lands are mountains or swamps or something like that, that maybe doesn't produce food anymore? Well, the effect it could have on the markets is, well, certainly those that are able to produce food, the price of food might certainly go up on the markets. And then those that aren't able to produce food organically, pun intended, anymore, will have to buy their food off the market. So what does that mean? Well, for those that now have to buy food or grain off the market from other suppliers, they're going to need to have some source of income to pay for that food to keep their land up and running. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics of these LPs and these resources, and to see what resources become scarce or in demand, and how people manage the land game. You can see very quickly how things like storage and transportation and resource density and diversity become very complex and very much important in further iterations of land here in Splinterlands. So just keep that in mind. I mean, again, all this is speculation as it pertains to land, specialization, storage, and food. But if you can try and at least maybe keep that in mind when you maybe purchase land, or look at land bargains or things like that as you're planning your full-time or future long-term land strategy, these could be things that you can maybe try and plan for now that help make things easier in the future. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think? What are the new game mechanics and factors of land that you are taking into account and planning for now, and that you're hoping will benefit you in the future? Drop a note in the comments below, and until next time, keep stacking those stats.